Repairs are done, now let's have fun.
When it comes to doing chicken on the barbecue, there are so many options for you to choose from. You can do thighs, you can do an entire chicken, you can do wings. Today we're gonna do some boneless, skinless chicken breasts. Now chicken breasts get a bit of a bad rap when it comes to grilling because often people will overcook them and they wind up being really dry. I'm sure we've all had that situation where we go to a cookout and somebody's overcooked the chicken, it winds up really dry. So today we're gonna hope to avoid that by making a wet brine. We're gonna do that overnight. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna add moisture to the meat, it's gonna tenderize the meat as well, and it has the added bonus of bringing tons of flavor to the party. When it comes to brining meat for the barbecue, there's basically two different types. There's a dry brine and there's a wet brine. So the dry brine is basically just a very salt-heavy barbecue rub that you would use to cook anything on the barbecue. Today though, we're gonna try a wet brine, and the concept of a wet brine is that we're gonna dissolve salt in liquid. And what that's gonna do is, without getting too scientific, the salt is gonna allow moisture to get into the meat, and it'll also help tenderize and break down the proteins in the meat. So it's gonna end up really, really moist and juicy. It's gonna end up super tender, and it's gonna add a lot of flavor as well. So for today's wet brine, all we're gonna do, 4 ingredients, you probably have them around your house anyway. Some apple juice, some garlic, you gotta have garlic, and then just simple kosher salt and freshly cracked black pepper. 4 ingredients you probably have anyway. That's all there is to it for this really, really simple wet brine. So when it comes to building this brine, the first thing we're gonna wanna do is decide what sort of container we're gonna put it in. You can put it into a plastic container or into a bowl or anything you want. We're gonna use just a zip top bag. We find these are pretty good because they'll allow you to cover the entire chicken with the liquid that we're gonna make, and it's really easy to get into your fridge. So we'll start by putting the chicken into the bag. Makes it pretty easy. Stand up pretty nicely there. Then we're gonna go with our liquid. So we'll take, usually the ratio we wanna use is about 1 cup of salt to about 1 gallon of liquid. We're not gonna use a gallon here, so we're gonna use about 28 ounces or so. It doesn't have to be exact. Pour that right into the bag, right over top of the chicken. Again, the most important thing is that everything is covered. Then we're gonna add just about a tablespoon of garlic. You can use fresh. We just have the jarred kind here. I put a little extra than a tablespoon. That's what cooking is all about. Making mistakes and going with your gut. Now we're gonna put in some kosher salt, maybe a little more than a 1/4 cup of kosher salt. And finally, a few cracks of black pepper. However much you want. Again, when it comes to brining, it's not an exact science. There's a million different recipes out there. This is just the one that we find works really well. So now what we'll do, we'll just seal up the bag best we can. Basically, all you want to do is make sure that salt is nice and dissolved. A lot of brines will also add sugar, but because we're using apple juice as our liquid instead of water, we don't feel like it's too necessary. That seems pretty good and mixed up. For a brine like this, you'll probably want to put it in the fridge for about 4 hours, I'd say at the minimum, but ideally we'll put it in overnight. So we'll go fire this in the fridge and we'll come back when it's ready. As you can see, big changes in the meat. That's all that sugar from the apple juice, the salt, the garlic, the pepper, it's all permeated that meat. It's gonna make it super, super tender and really, really juicy as well. Now, it's important to note that this isn't a marinade, this is a brine, and it's quite salty. So before we take it out to the grill, just gonna wanna take each of these pieces of chicken, give them a quick rinse. Might seem crazy, but it's gonna make a lot of difference. It's not gonna make it too salty when it's out on the grill. So now that we've got our chicken brined and rinsed, it's time to throw it on the grill. Now we got this thing going ripping hot, just about 600 degrees Fahrenheit, basically as hot as we want to get it. We're gonna sear it first and then finish it with indirect heat. So we're gonna cook it over the fire to begin with, get those delicious grill marks on there, and move it over to indirect heat in the end so that we don't overcook it.
We're also using homemade smoker pouches on the grill for a subtle smoky flavor. Check out our video in the description to learn how to make and use these for your next meal.
So we'll get them on the grill here. They still work. Fire them right on the grill. And you can hear that sizzle. That means we're good to go. We don't want to bake them, so we're going to leave the grill open. That's going to cost us a little bit of heat initially, but as we got it up to about 600 degrees before we started, we should be good. So we'll leave those on about 3 or 4 minutes each side, get those nice grill marks, and then we'll move them off the heat. I think we're about ready to go. We'll take these off. Now this is the part where people usually overcook the chicken, where they leave it on the grill here, cook it over the direct flame for too long, and that's how it dries out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these off. We're gonna sauce those up. Oh yeah, that looks delicious. We didn't want to put the barbecue sauce on earlier because we don't want it to burn on the grill, and now that we're just gonna sauce it or cook this the remaining time on indirect heat, we can safely put the barbecue sauce on.
In a previous video, we showed you how to make a really easy but amazing barbecue sauce. We'll link that video in the description.
So now that we've got our chicken nice and sauced up, it's time to finish it on indirect heat. So it's not fully cooked through in the middle, but it also hasn't gotten overdone, which is really what we're trying to avoid here. So we've got our smoke packets here. They're creating a little bit of smoke that's gonna add some flavor. And we've got this part of the grill still hot, this part of the grill completely turned off. So what we're gonna wanna do is put these chicken breasts on basically as far away from the direct heat as you can get them on the grill, with the thickest part of the chicken facing toward the hot part. That's gonna make sure that it cooks evenly. You don't get those sort of undercooked big parts and overcooked sort of thinner parts down towards the end. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna insert a temperature probe. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna insert it into the thickest part of the chicken breast. We've got our timer here, our program to tell us to take it off at 160 degrees Fahrenheit that is. 165 degrees Fahrenheit is your safe zone for poultry, but what we're gonna wanna do is take it off about 5 degrees before it's done so that when it's resting on the board, it doesn't overcook. So we'll close this lid up, let that smoke do its thing, and we'll let you know when it gets up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So now that we got our chicken to 160 degrees, we're gonna pull them off here real quick. They look fantastic. We're gonna let them do their last 5 degrees of cooking here on the cutting board. The juices will redistribute. We don't really need to let them rest as long as we normally would for like a steak or something that was cooked on really high heat, but couple more minutes, they'll get to that 165 degrees sweet spot for chicken. Okay, so now we're just gonna add a little bit of our homemade barbecue sauce to these while they're resting and coming up to temperature, just to add a little more of that really good barbecue flavor. Give those 1 or 2 more minutes and then we'll cut them open and we'll be good to go. All right, we're gonna cut it open. Oh yeah. Oh, you can see the juice coming out of it already. So one thing left to do, taste it. Looks incredibly tender and juicy. Oh man, it is so good. A little bit of that smoke flavor on it. Still incredibly juicy, perfectly cooked. Barbecue sauce is dynamite. I might have to eat this whole thing. It's fantastic. That was some of the best chicken I've ever had in my life. So juicy and tender from that overnight brine. You have to try it. We do want to hear from you though. How do you cook your chicken? Let us know in the comment section below.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more helpful videos. And if your grill needs a little TLC before trying this amazing chicken recipe, visit us at eatreplacementparts.com to get it up and running again.